be. So let me just copy this class name, and I will go here, alt insert Java class and test, enter. So we have got this our test class created now. To save some time, I will copy the previous some of the previous chapters. So I will go to chapter 13 again and copy the test cases from here, just to save some time. And then we will make necessary changes required for this chapter. Control C and then Control V. And let's go back here and make some changes. So we are not using any reference object in our Java Pojo. It's simple with string and primitive fields. So this one is good. And let me change the name of the serialized file to this class, test class name. So setup is looking good now. Now let me change the display name for our serialization method. So test, which is for Java Pojo with writeReplace. And similarly, once we get for test deserialized, it should be with readResolve. Okay, very quickly I can do this fixes. So let me also remove this. And what else? Yep. So I need to change the object for this chapter. So it should be this. So we are setting this security ID, Apple, etc. And this is all looking good. Just for so that once we create this object with Apple for Apple security ID, and when we call this writeObject method here, instead of serializing this object, it will serialize the whatever the object that we are creating in writeReplace, which means that, let's go back here. So if I go down, so instead of that Apple object that we are creating there and trying to save it, instead of that object, this market data object that we are creating in writeReplace, that would be written to the serialized, that would be serialized to the stream of bytes, not the one which is with Apple. That's the purpose of writeReplace method. That whatever object that we return from here, that should be serialized, not the one which we have given here in our this market data, in this our test case. Now let's go to test deserialized method. So let me first of all change the cast. So it should be for this chapter, and after this, let me simply remove all this reference. We are not referencing anything back. Okay, here it's important again that even for the read, we have provided a custom readResolve method, which means that the one object which is replaced. Okay, let me go back here first. Okay, so we are serializing this object with meta because of the writeReplace method. And once we read it back, so instead of getting this meta object back after deserialization, we are creating this readResolve method in which we are creating another new object for Amazon, and that this is what is being returned back. So it should be exactly for Amazon now. So this is what we have to assert, that once we deserialize it back and once we our object is replaced, it should be for Amazon. So here I put it as 3. Okay, I think our test cases are looking good now. For this unit test case, I will try to debug it instead of running it, so that we can exactly see that what's going on once we call this writeReplace and all these methods. So I will create a debug point here at system.out.println, and similarly for the readResolve, when we test our deserialized unit test case, in that case also I will put a debug point here. Now let's go here, and first of all, let's debug this test serialize. So as per our theory, that once we call this writeObject, before that writeReplace should be called, and it should create this new market data object, and then this should be serialized. Okay, so let me go back again and run this. I mean, not run this, but debug this. I just click on debug. So I expect that writeReplace should be called. Okay, so we are at our debug point, writeReplace. But before that, let me check at the console. So console says that before serialization, our security ID was for Apple, and this was a state, like everything with 160, 165 and all. And now we are inside our, so this was supposed to be serialized, but because we have provided a writeReplace method, so instead of this object, it would be the object that we are creating here inside this for meta, that this should be serialized. So let's debug it one by one. So F8. So here we are creating this object with for meta, and we are putting all those like low high prices with, instead of 160 should be 260 and all. And this is what we have returned. And finally, you can see that this object, so writeReplace came first, and then after this, we replaced the object, and then we finally wrote that replaced object to the stream of bytes. So I will do option F9. So it means that our first, like creating this slice file was done. And also I see that we have got this, our serialization file also being created. Now let's do the same for test deserialize. Here for test deserialize, we expect that it should come back after readObject should be coming first. I mean, it should be default readObject first, and it should be returning me the market data object for meta as in a deserialized format. And then when we call this readResolve on top of it, it will be creating a new object for Amazon, and that should be written. I will create a debug point here as well. So once we deserialize, so we can exactly look at what is there in the from serialize. Okay, so let's debug it now. I click on debug button now. Okay, so we are in the readResolve method. So we expect that the read object was already being called. So let's check in the console. So yeah, we can see that inside read object was called. And now the most important point here is that if you see this object, right? I mean the readResolve, where was deserialized, it is actually for meta. The meta is because this is what we are creating here in our writeReplace for meta, and this was being serialized. And once we deserialize it, now we are getting the same object back for meta, not for the Apple, which was done before. It's actually the meta, which was done by writeReplace. And now in the readResolve method, again, we are going to replace this object being deserialized with a new for Amazon. So let's do it. So I will just F8, and then we are setting it back. And now we are returning another object from the readResolve. And I will do function 9 now. Okay, so now we got our deserialized object back, and we expect that this should be for Amazon. And we can see it here. It's actually for Amazon. And that's why it should be all these values should be same. F9. So our test case is good here as well. Okay, so we learned that, okay, it's already working as expected. So guys, let's revise what we have done so far. So we created our writeResolve method and writeReplace method and readResolve methods to replace the original object for which is being serialized or deserialized back, and we replaced it with a new object which was created inside those methods, custom methods. And we tested it by creating this. First of all, we created this market data object for Apple, and we set some fields there for creating its state. But once we write this writeObject method, before that, because we have provided our, before that, we already created our writeReplace method. So this was called first before we called the writeObject. And here we actually replaced that Apple object with a new object for Meta, the market data for Meta Facebook, and that was being serialized. And once we call the deserialized method, so instead of getting the Meta object back, we overrode it with our readResolve method, and we gave back a new object inside this readResolve, which was for Amazon, and that was being returned. And this is all we tested in our both the unit test cases, and it's all good. So guys, this was all about chapter 19 using writeReplace and readResolve. In the next video, we'll cover chapter 20, which is the singleton pattern, and how it's getting affected by readResolve method. So see you all in the next video.